Family. What's going on, Ma? Welcome you guys to a Tuesday watch party here on the watch list. I'm JR. What's going on, everyone? I know, I get it. I understand. I came in a couple seconds late. That is to the pre notification to what's going on here. But I think all the folks who really know, all my nerds that showed up early, really know what's going on. And I apologize, Vegas. Yes, I am a nerd, and I called you all that as well. There's a lot happening. I might as well let you guys know right off the top. Unless I go really fast and I talk too fast, so you guys can't even understand what I'm saying, like I tend to do sometimes. We're probably going to go over this hour a little bit. There was so much that was going on. So many things that I saw at the back end of yesterday, and then started into today, and what we're going to be potentially seeing more of today. Some implications. First off, about Epstein. That's on the back end, but I have to start with that ridiculous press conference that happened yesterday. I guess it's a press conference. I think there was a few questions that were asked, but I feel like the first question everyone probably wanted to ask from that press conference yesterday about Tylenol and autism was, what? It's probably the most encompassing question you could probably ask when this administration stood there. Dr. Oz, RFK Jr., Donald Trump, and I guess a couple of the idiots stood up there behind him to embarrass themselves in front of the country, and then to allow the country to be embarrassed in front of the world. I mean, I think the world is used to it by now. Let's go ahead and get started with probably one of the most ironic things that the president said yesterday as he stood there saying ridiculous things. Let's go.
$1,300 for a shot of like an Ozempic or the fat, I call it the fat pill or the fat drug. Sometimes it works, I guess, for people. The ones I've seen, it hasn't worked so well. I got a lot of friends that have fat. They said, yeah, I lost some weight. I said, you don't look it to me. But they paid $1,300, $1,200, and they go to London and they pay $88. And they call me, they go, what's this all about? We're subsidizing the rest of the world stupidly because we have a lot of stupid people in this country running things. And how big is that? But to me, that's nothing compared to autism. I see that gorgeous.
The fat pill. Donald Trump said that we got a lot of stupid people in this country running things. I mean, maybe he forgot who's running things. Maybe he is actually that stupid. Also, he called Ozempic, he calls it the fat pill. There's probably reasons why he calls it the fat pill instead of Ozempic, because although he can pronounce Ozempic, he definitely can't pronounce this one.
Effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of well, let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Is that okay? Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol during pregnancy, can be associated with a very increased risk of autism. Effective immediately.
Well, at least his dumbass knocked Tylenol out of the park. Tylenol. He really punched that. I was like, I got that one. Good job. Acetaminophen. Who knows? Whatever. I said it, but I'm only here talking. I have no idea what I'm saying. As a matter of fact, I don't even know which kind of drugs I'm talking about and how they're pronounced. That so many people know whether or not they've taken it or not, how that's pronounced. Whatever. But the main thing he's there to talk about is how it causes autism. And you should trust him because he doesn't know anything. Matter of fact, he exhibited it for I think it was over an hour. He was standing at this press conference saying ridiculous things, proving to the American people and the entire world that he has no idea what he's doing. And a matter of fact, he doesn't care about what he's doing because he only cares about himself. We're going to get to how bad that really got, but he kept exhibiting how people that are smart, have brains, and know what they're saying and doing, how he refutes them and has absolutely no reason for why he refutes them.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was hoping that you could clear up confusion for moms and dads across America, many of whom voted for you. There's a statement that was put out by the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and in their statement, they write, acetaminophen remains a safe, trusted option for pain relief during pregnancy, and that's at odds with what you said and with what many of the experts say. How do you clear up this confusion?
That's the establishment. They're funded by lots of different groups. And you know what? maybe they're right. I don't think they are, because I don't think the facts bear it out at all. They're fighting for something that, in my opinion, they shouldn't be fighting for. But here's the thing: there's no downside to doing, other than a mother will have to, as I say, tough it out a little bit. There's no downside to doing this. It's not like,
Oh, there's so much. Okay, so the American College grouping of obstetricians and gynecologists, experts say the opposite of what you're saying. Well, apparently that's just the establishment. And maybe they're right. How do I know? I haven't thought about any of this. I don't know what this means. I don't know who this group is that you're mentioning, because what I've done is I've stood up here and is given prepared words to say as I then ramble off on the side about the things that I don't know or do know. And in my opinion, based on the facts. Which one is it, bro? Is it your opinion or is it the facts? And would someone please, maybe one time, maybe for the first time ever in this dumb fuck's history, ever ask him, what facts are you referring to? He keeps saying, look at this, look at that, look at the facts. Hey, I haven't seen the facts. You tell me, where are those facts? Because apparently you have them, right? Or are they just your opinion that you keep pointing out? Again, and the back end of that, he mentioned how pregnant women, maybe their option rather than taking Tylenol, maybe when they have a fever during pregnancy, is to tough it out. He mentioned it a couple more times.
it's a small number of cases, I think. But if you can't tough it out, if you can't do it, uh, that's what you're going to have to do. You'll take a Tylenol, but it'll be very sparingly. It can be something that's very dangerous to the woman's health. In other words, a fever that's very, very dangerous, and ideally a doctor's decision, because I think you shouldn't take it. And you shouldn't take it during the entire pregnancy. They may tell you that toward the end of the pregnancy, you shouldn't take it during the entire. And you shouldn't give the child the Tylenol every time he's born and he goes and has a shot. You shouldn't give a Tylenol to that child. It's
Donald Trump, who obviously has never had a child, but has had multiple children with multiple different women, because, you know, he's not a whatever. Donald Trump, who's going to tell pregnant women to tough out whatever pain or fevers they've got during pregnancy. Maybe you should just tough it out. Get over it. What's the matter? It's not like you have a human body growing inside of you. It's not like you have to give birth. It's not like there's complications that he's never heard of, and anyone else in this Republican Party, especially as we've seen them exhibit every time they've talked about their anti-choice stances on women's issues. They've told us that, but what he's got is some advice for pregnant women to tough it out in case you've got a fever. Hey, there's something else he could have done as well too. I mean, you don't have to know everything. In fact, maybe you should know one thing, but I get it. Maybe you don't know everything, but there's places you can look up. It's 2025 and understand some information. You don't have to be a doctor to understand these very simple things that I found in like 5 seconds. It was on the March of Dimes, and they're talking about moms, healthy moms, and strong babies. I feel like that's something Donald Trump would be in favor of. That is, unless he's lying to you. Here's the first question: can having a fever hurt my baby? Let me give you guys this very clear answer. Having a fever during pregnancy, especially during your first trimester, may cause problems for your baby. People who had a fever just before or during early pregnancy were more than twice as likely to have a baby with a neural tube defect than those who didn't have a fever. NTDs are birth defects of the brain, spine, and spinal cord. And according to the CDC, before this dumb fuck took over, getting 400 micrograms of folic acid every day while pregnant can reduce the risk of neural tube defects, even if you have a fever. A temperature higher than 103 during the first trimester may also increase the risk of, here's 4 things. I really want you guys to pay attention to these 4 things that a fever could increase. Autism spectrum disorder. It's like what we're talking about. Cleft lip and cleft palate, congenital heart disease, and miscarriage, devastating things like that. Let me give you guys the best part of this information. I scrolled down and it said, what should I do if I have a fever? Here it is. Call your provider if you have a fever. Most pregnant women, most pregnant people can take acetaminophen, that word Donald Trump can't pronounce, also known as Tylenol, to lower their temperature. Just tough it out. Just tough it out with those fevers and those pains, and then afterwards end up potentially risking your pregnancy altogether, risking other health complications for you and your child, even that thing that they're calling a scourge of the earth, autism. It's almost like they don't know what they're talking about. Here's another clear indication of that. He said a lot of stupid shit.
Hepatitis B is sexually transmitted. There's no reason to give a baby that's almost just born hepatitis B. So I would say wait till the baby is 12 years old and formed and take hepatitis B.
Pause there on the fact that he thinks that a 12-year-old girl is ready to, be sexually active, because I think that's a little bit of a window into his brain and maybe his activities. But still, there, gee, hepatitis B is only transmitted sexually, says Donald Trump, and therefore 12-year-olds should. We know what he's saying again, though. But he continues to talk about how hepatitis B is sexually transmitted. And, he's right. Hepatitis B is sexually transmitted. And matter of fact, he said it again. I want to give you guys the repeated versions of how dumb this guy is.
Vaccines. Hepatitis B, again, that's sexually transmitted. And we think you should wait. I think you should wait till 12. I'm making these statements from me. I'm not making them from these doctors, because when they talk about, different results, different studies. I talk about a lot of common sense, and they have that too. They have that too, a lot. But I recommend the hepatitis B. Take it at 12. Sexually transmitted. You don't have to give it to the baby when the baby's 2 years old. And there are a lot of theories on that, but not when they're 12. Doesn't make sense.
He's really stressing the 12-year-old girls need to with their sexually activity. But again, he sees people referring to studies and research, and what he leans on is common sense in his empty brain. Um, it's not like it's hidden. It's not like they're hiding it. It's not like he's not outright saying, I'm probably wrong about everything I'm saying, but I just like to go off the cuff and say stupid things and I have no idea what I'm talking about. And after I say those things, it should be seen as standard scientific practice, even though I just said it has nothing to do with research, nor practices, nor scientific basis for anything. I just said it. It came to my mind. I was like, that sounds good, brain. Let's go with that. And because I'm a narcissist, because I'm a sociopath, I'm going to tell the entire country the things that I say that I just told you mean nothing. They should be the standard for how you operate with your lives. Somebody tell me why we should have ever believed anything he said before, when tons of people died from the COVID pandemic that swept the entire world. And he kept saying stupid things then too. It's not like we don't have a track record. How many people were directly affected from losing someone from that? Understanding how he handled that situation, because he kept going off the top of his head what he calls common sense. So let's revisit one more time. Hepatitis B, it's only transmitted sexually. It's weird. It's weird because I did this other thing. I looked it up just to make sure I was right. This is the way hepatitis B is primarily transmitted through the following routes: is direct contact with infected blood or body fluids. Okay, sure. Sharing needles or syringes for injecting drugs. No, that's not babies. Maybe that's 12-year-olds in his world too. Sexual contact with an infected person, a 12-year-old with Donald Trump. Okay, from mother to child during childbirth. I'll say it again: from mother to child during childbirth. Indirect contact with contaminated objects, sharing personal items such as razors, toothbrushes, or nail clippers, contact with blood or bodily fluids on contaminated surfaces. There's some risk factors. Being born in a country where HBV is common, which Trump is trying to make sure it's going to happen. Having multiple sexual partners, working in healthcare or other professions that involve exposure to blood or bodily fluids. it's almost like there's more ways than just sexually transmitted ways to get hepatitis B. But who cares? Donald Trump doesn't know what he's talking about. That was the whole basis for this entire press conference, to say what he doesn't know what he's talking about. And then after saying that that should then be the standard. Here's more of it, because he's got groups of people that he knows, he completely understands, never have autism, never pass it to any children. No one ever is tested and discovers that they've got autism, because they just happen to be these groups of people that he pulled again out of his orange ass.
Because when you go from 20,000 to 10,000 and then you go to 12, you know there's something artificial. They're taking something. And by the way, I think I can say that there are certain groups of people that don't take vaccines and don't take any pills that have no autism. That have no autism. Does that tell you something? That's currently, is that a correct statement, by the way?
There are some studies that suggest that, yeah, with the Amish, for example.
The Amish, yeah, virtually. I heard none. See, Bobby wants to be very careful with what he says, and he should, but I'm not so careful with what I say. But you have certain groups, the Amish as an example, they have essentially no autism. Because when you go from 20,000,
He exhibited right there how his brain functions. He comes up with something, and because he's standing in front of cameras, and I think maybe his brain is like, yo, you're saying a lot of, inaccurate things that just coming out of the top of your head. So he asked, is that a correct statement, Bobby? Maybe possibly the dumber person that's standing behind me? It must be the Amish, because since I had to ask if there's any groups, and then RFK Jr. says the Amish, I then say, you see, I've heard that there's none. Where did you hear that? Because you just heard the RFK Jr. just tell you that it's the Amish, and he didn't say anything about none, but you got to none. All you have to do is pay attention to what he's saying, and you'll discover he doesn't know what he's talking about. You'll discover that when he comes to these ironclad conclusions, they're not based in anything except for what someone mentioning. Amish, I believe Amish. It must be the Amish. Oh, so Amish have 100% virtually no autistic folks. We don't have to disprove that. It's quite obvious that that's stupid and it doesn't make any sense. So he went on to another group. It's crazy. It's crazy.
this country is going through what parts of the world are going through. And I will say there are parts of the world that don't take Tylenol. I mean, there's a rumor, and I don't know if it's so or not, that Cuba, they don't have Tylenol because they don't have the money for Tylenol, and they have virtually no autism. Okay, tell me about that one. And there are other parts of the world where they don't have Tylenol, where they don't have autism. That tells you a lot. This country.
It tells me a lot. It tells me a lot about this guy, because Cuba doesn't have enough money for Tylenol. There's no way they don't have it. I mean, because Cuba in general, just, that country in general is just this place that just doesn't have enough money. No one there has enough money for Tylenol because, Donald Trump said so. And on top of that, he also said, what does that tell you? Look at it. Proof positive. Cuba came out of the top of my head. And what do you know? They don't have autism. You know why? Because I just said it. I usually don't look at these all of these fact checks and on X itself, because X is full of a bunch of bots. But people did point out here, Cuba has an autism rate of 83.3 per 10,000 children in 2023. According to data from the Autism and Development Disabilities Monitoring Network, the US rate was 80.9. The same data shows that information. They have a site as well. I mean, a reference there as well to that information. It's weird that Donald Trump said Cuba's got virtually no autism. So he ended this ridiculous press conference. It's hard to even call it ridiculous, dangerous press conference. But you know what? I wonder how many people would actually listen to everything that was going on here and take it seriously anyway. Even the hardcore sycophants. Are people pouring out their Tylenol now in MAGA country? You know, are they crushing it up and then throwing it into the lake? Are they lining it up in front of the lake and shooting it with a machine gun? I'm just curious, you know, because Donald Trump said Tylenol, you know, dangerous. Matter of fact, he basically said that. Look, this is how he ended the press conference.
The research, a lot of what they've been speaking about comes from right here by research done by these people. And I just say it again, don't take Tylenol. Don't take it. And don't give it to your child after your child is born. And do all those other things, little things, just spread out your visits, et cetera, on the vaccine. And I want to thank everybody. This is a very important day. Thank you very much.
You know, that well-known study that has the words et cetera, when detailing what it is that you should and shouldn't do as far as medical advice in scientific study. It goes et cetera. That's how those go. We don't have much time left in this country. It's about a wrap. We're pretty much done. We're falling behind the guy whose last declarative statement about autism is don't take Tylenol. This is a very important day. Don't take Tylenol. End of story. Got it. We figured it out, bro. All the years and years of scientific study and research and actual investigations into things, you know, peer-reviewed things, scientific bases, you know, all the stuff that they figured out and actually referred to and has given real concrete evidence behind, you know, all that. That was the establishment making money. But instead, Donald Trump, who's made $5 billion since he's had his time as a politician, he's not in this to make any money. What he's in this for is to say, don't take Tylenol. Boom. Got it. Done. Thank you. You're welcome. What a fucking idiot. Or is he? Here's another aspect of what was going on yesterday at that press conference. That was the idiot portion of the day. Here is the grifting portion of the day. Because you know what this administration and this MAGA movement does is they mix so well. The one thing they do well is they mix stupidity with grifting at every turn that they possibly can. Did you guys see that this how this went down? Here's Dr. Oz, who was also standing behind him. You know, that guy that used to be on TV who says he's a doctor.
The FDA, based on NIH research, is approving prescription Leucovorin for treatment of autistic children. Now, if you're following the script, there should be two questions that you have, two questions that should come to your mind. The first is, how will patients and parents get access to the treatment? I'll tell you how. Over half of American children are covered by Medicaid and CHIP, government health insurance, over half. And therefore, because they're covered in Medicaid and CHIP, upon this label change by Marty, state Medicaid programs in partnership with CMS will cover prescription Leucovorin around the country. It's yours, but you have to go to a doctor to get a prescription because they know your child, they know you, and they know the medication. States will also have tools to monitor its use and ensure appropriate utilization. That's important for a bunch of reasons because we want the right kids getting the right prescription medications. We believe private insurance companies will rapidly follow our lead if they have not already done so. And again, to make sure that this is safe and effective treatment, you need a physician to prescribe the medication because it's on prescription.
Dr. Oz, that press conference talking about autism yesterday, said that the FDA is approving Leucovorin. Leucovorin, hey, you know, if you feel a sales pitch version of that, if you buy today, you might get a second bottle for free. If you order in the next 2 minutes and 30 seconds, as the ticker goes down, call 1-800-Leucovorin, and you're going to get your second bottle. Just add extra shipping and handling, maybe more processing costs, but you'll get your second bottle for free. You know how you can get it? Hurry up and get it. Hurry up and get it. I feel like we shouldn't be so dumb that we didn't see this going down the way it was going down. But let me go ahead and show you how this is going down. People magazine was pointing out Leucovorin as as now has been presented for it. There's something about Leucovorin. Let me give you guys some details that I'm not sure if Dr. Oz went in such detail. It's from this People magazine article. It says the FDA did issue an official notice saying that it was approving this tablet of Leucovorin, a folinic acid supplement, as a treatment for autism. Leucovorin is a form of vitamin B first used in the 1950s to treat the side effects of chemotherapy. The supplement should not be given universally and is not a cure, is what Dr. Karam Radwan, who's the director of the University of Chicago Medicine Neurodevelopmental Clinic, tells People magazine. Okay, there's maybe some uses. Let's go into potentialists. Some of the things about Leucovorin that Dr. Oz was just talking about is going to be this, cure-all for autism, because autism is a scourge on the earth, they say. As the Washington Post explains, Leucovorin is typically used to treat vitamin B9 deficiency or manage side effects from other medications. Ongoing clinical trials have shown it may help children with autism who struggle with communication. It's something that we think might be able to help a lot of children, is what Richard Fry, a pediatric neurologist, told the outlet. But he also said that the research is still in its early stages, explaining we're still on the 10-yard line. And I also want to remind you guys, he said it may help children with autism who struggle with communication, because if you actually look into things, you may understand that there's a spectrum here, and some folks are affected in other ways than many other people are. So if you have Dr. Oz and RFK Jr. and Donald Trump standing up there going, Leucovorin, 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 cure all, be all, it's because they're not going to tell you the rest of this story. Let me tell you a little bit more of it. This Leucovorin, quote, this Leucovorin, or the scientific name that we use for its folinic acid, is a version of a B9 that bypasses some of these additional steps that your body needs to make in order to convert folic acid to something that can cross your brain barrier. That's what that same Dr. Radwan said. There are some studies showing some benefit in improving communication with these kids. However, he said the benefits were often modest, adding that the problem with Leucovorin's studies is that there are not many, and that these studies have like 50 patients here, 40 patients there. It's weird how, extensive, years-long, decades-long studies and scientific evidence behind the things that we actually know about autism, they get tossed out the window because we need 40 to 50 here and there in this studies who are also on the 10-yard line, which may help in some forms. Cool, I understand that. More though, because this really gets detailed. But be cautious. It's not a cure, they say. You're not going to see people improving in days when we start using it. Adding that, I use it in my practice when it's appropriate and then find the right patient. Not when Dr. Oz stands in front of a podium and says, Leucovorin, Leucovorin, go get you some. Hey, you can get it this way. I'm going to show you how easy it is to get. In other words, normally when doctors who have a relationship with their patients and they talk to them about what it is that could potentially help with whatever it is that they're prescribing or talking to them about, not based in Dr. Oz from a podium standing in front of Donald Trump saying this stuff, might get better information for people. Let me finish this. It's not a one size fits all medication, is what that doctor then said, adding that it can also cause irritability and aggression in the wrong patient. But for those with the genetic pathways that are well-known identified issues when they cannot convert folic acid to the final product, that's definitely an appropriate use for folic acids. So this doctor, again, who knows more than Donald Trump and Dr. Oz on this matter, specifically the one that Dr. Oz is trying to sell. But not everyone with autism has that issue, he explains. I'll say that sentence again. But not everyone with autism has that issue. We have to test for it and not give it universally, thinking that everybody should get Leucovorin if you have autism. That would be the wrong message to send. But they're sending that message. Let me show you why Dr. Oz is sending that message that doctors who know what they're talking about said maybe you shouldn't send that message. Adam Cochran over on X says, by the way, iHerb, a company that Dr. Oz served as a global advisor for and still owns a major chunk of equity in, is the largest seller of folinic acid in the US. It's the non-prescription version of Leucovorin, and as of today, it has rapidly sold out. iHerb has about 30% of the US supplement sales market, and California Gold Nutrition, another brand, is their own brand of in-house supplements, meaning that Dr. Oz is going to make a killing from this new recommendation. I wonder why Dr. Oz popped his dumb fucking head up to talk about Leucovorin. Leucovorin, this is how you can get it. Trust me, this is how you can get Leucovorin. If as long as you get Leucovorin, you're gonna make, it's gonna cure the autism. Don't take Tylenol when you're pregnant. Just don't do it. We knew Dr. Oz was a clown when he was running, I believe was he running for Senate? When he was running for office and he clowned himself in Pennsylvania multiple times over and over again. Remember the crudité? He was in the grocery store trying to talk about the grocery store prices. Maybe Dr. Oz can talk to us about grocery prices now again, since he's standing next to the guy who's caused them to skyrocket. Whatever. But Dr. Oz is trying to make some more money. You know why? Because Dr. Oz apparently is not rich enough and he needs to find another grift based off of medical science that he's now shifting towards his bank account so he can make more money. So the message is Tylenol, bad. Leucovorin, good. Since we're talking doctors, the rest of this story here, I want to show you guys what doctors have to say. Here's one doctor. His name is Vin Gupta. He was also talking about the dangers of what was going on at this press conference.
So it's an embarrassment for the FDA. They can't defend it. Trump's out there saying don't take Tylenol writ large. What does that mean? And oh, by the way, something to keep in mind for all the moms out there, just to make sure that they feel like they're being heard. Talk about lack of empathy. First of all, they're trying to control the bodies of women. Secondarily, they're saying, hey, listen, they're shaming them about what they should and should not take in the absence of evidence. It is very clear that if pregnancy-related pain, not responsive to massages, cold compresses, non-medication-related interventions, if that goes untreated, Ben, that's a harm to baby. You can't just sit there with a fever, or you can't sit there with unmitigated pain. That's going to harm baby too. And so they didn't talk about that. They didn't also talk about the fact that there's an equity issue here too. A lot of the women that experience this are the ones that don't actually have durable access to healthcare. So yes, they might reach more for interventions to help them get through pregnancy-related pain. If there's a real risk here, they should cite it. They should look at the real data. There isn't. But the fact that he's putting this out there, blanket statement, don't take Tylenol, there isn't another option, number one. Number two, it is safe. That's what the best quality research shows. And how irresponsible, going on, using the podium of the White House to put this out there when you're not even offering an alternative. You're just telling people to sort of grit their teeth through it. That is dangerous. And untreated fever is dangerous. Untreated pain in pregnancy, dangerous.
Talk to your doctor. That is, unless Donald Trump says not to talk to your doctor. There's more doctors. I want to keep showing. Since I dedicated so much time to the stupid part of this administration, I just want to point out that there's still people who think in this country that we can actually bypass all this craziness that they're talking about and listen to what doctors are saying. They were consistently all day trying to refute the madness that was going on.
Dr. Ho says, I want to read the rest of the statement from medical ethicist Art Kaplan. He said of today's White House announcement, what was said was not only unsupported and wrong, but flat out malpractice in managing pregnancy and protecting fetal life. I know this is personal for you. You've spoken about your daughter who lives with autism. What do you believe will be the real world impact of what was said today by President Trump and Secretary Kennedy?
Well, the real world impact is that parents are now, or people are going to think that Tylenol causes autism. And as Dr. Gupta points out, it's not supported by the science. So the right answer would be, if they were going to convene a press conference, they're saying, look, we are concerned about autism. We know it affects a lot of families. We want to do a deeper dive into the potential causes of autism. So we're going to convene the best neuroscientists, the best environmental health experts together to look at potential associations to see if there's any interventions. That'd be a very reasonable thing to do. Because the truth is, there are some chemical exposures that are much better associated with the autism phenotype.
If you're going to try and have some kind of other approach to this, don't just blanketly say Tylenol. Maybe have some research, maybe compile some doctors, maybe think about these things. Because the problem is, if they did that, they would understand that there's already been doctors that have looked into all these things, which is why he said there are potentially other chemical factors, some other things going on. But the problem is they don't know that because they don't care about that. The purpose is to So Leucovorin. Here's a couple more doctors. This is an aspect I think that this crossed my mind too. They're talking about how the FDA has now approved this Leucovorin. Also, how this the CDC has all these different skewed directions for their recommendations to doctors. I'm not sure if everyone really knows this, but doctors generally go off of when you see these recommendations and these things from an approved smart people that have looked into these things. That's how we get our standards and our normalizations, and why doctors maybe have approaches that they take with their patients. This particular doctor was on CNN talking about how these skewed recommendations actually make it even harder on doctors, because Donald Trump doesn't care about that. But they'll say, I mean, we have the best doctors in the world. We're just not telling them to do and believe stupid things.
I think it's very concerning. I know that patients are going to be scared now. They're not going to know what advice to go after or what to follow. I think even for physicians, it puts us in a very difficult predicament. Our professional societies and the science tells us that Tylenol is safe, but when you have the FDA that is saying something different, it puts us in a very difficult position. And I know that President Trump and that Secretary Kennedy said that patients should always consult their physician, and this is very true. They should, but they really have left us between a rock and a hard place. Again, for me, I have to follow the science. I went into medicine believing that the science and the evidence is what should guide how I practice. And so for me and for my patients, I will continue to recommend Tylenol. As has been said, the times that we're recommending Tylenol are usually for fever, for pain, and we don't have a safe alternative, especially for fever, and we know what happens when fever is untreated.
So if people start listening to this guy and stop listening to their doctors, or the doctors now have the pressure of, well, I mean, they're going to start thinking that I'm committing some kind of malpractice because I'm not believing the malpractice of RFK Jr.'s brain. This is how oligarchs and a bunch of strong-armed authoritarians work. Damn all the rest of the information. Damn what we've always seen and experienced, the things that have worked. I said so. And if I say so, if it ends in your death, who cares? I didn't die. Who cares? Who cares if doctors are in these tough positions now where people are going to maybe, hopefully not, I don't know how stupid the rest of the society is, may show up to doctors and be like, the FDA didn't approve it this way. What did RFK Jr. say about this, doctor? Well, take your ivermectin instead. Let's move to another doctor. Let me show you why some doctors, like the responsible ones that are talking about the response to this, how ridiculous it is, and how dangerous these types of recommendations are, and even how tough it is on them as they go forward in their profession in this country. Maybe they'll start leaving. Who knows? But there's another doctor. He's also a senator. His name is Bill Cassidy. He's also the same guy that I highlighted before, running away from questions about the confirmation of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his ridiculous approach to vaccines. Bill Cassidy, who's had to be the one who be on the hook for talking about how he allowed that to happen. In fact, endorsed him because he said he would get some kinds of back and forth with RFK Jr. I want to show you guys what his response was to this whole thing yesterday. He said, I understand and applaud President Trump's desire to address this issue and support HHS. HHS should release the new data that it has to support this claim. The preponderance of evidence shows that this is not the case. The concern is that women will be left with no options to manage pain in pregnancy. We must be compassionate to this problem. People gave this sumbitch credit for that weak ass general roundabout message that he put on X. He said, I understand and applaud the president's desire. He started with that. What desire does Trump have to address the issue? He has no desire to address the issue. His desire is to sell the Dr. Oz's scheme on his supplements. That's what his desire is. There's no desire in doing this. Just like they say, I understand Donald Trump is doing all he can to end the war between Ukraine and Russia. No, he doesn't. Stop giving him that credit, because he's not giving a damn about that. He even said a couple times he's about to abandon that altogether. So no credit for him, his desire. There's no desire. But number two, He says HHS should release the new data that it has to support this claim. What claim are you talking about, Bill? The preponderance of evidence shows that this is not the case. Not the case about what? He hasn't said what it is that he's talking about. Have you noticed that? He won't say what he's disagreeing with because he's afraid to say what he's disagreeing with. He literally never once said the president's words on autism today were wrong. Never said autism, never said he was wrong. He said, I would disagree the potentially a roundabout way that, I mean, the preponderance of evidence and, you know, this claim. What claim, bro? He put a link instead to an Axios article. The headline says, Trump links autism to Tylenol, urges pregnant women not to take it. He wouldn't say it. He put it in a link so that people who want to continue to you know, I guess, support him and Trump won't understand what it is that he's disagreeing with them about. We have to start understanding, even these guys that we give the credit to. Look, the Republican came forward. Marjorie Taylor Greene is finally coming around. Look at Nancy Mace. They're all doing it, and they're doing it with this way where they can still escape actually being responsible and actually living up to supporting their constituents. They don't give a damn still. He's like, how do I cover my ass and then claim that I was telling the truth about this lie over autism and Tylenol? I got it. I won't say shit. I'll just post and let people give me credit for it. You know why? Because Bill Cassidy still runs ads like this. And he needs Donald Trump for his political expediency, which obviously is way more important than, as he keeps claiming, his background as a doctor. Here's one of these ads from Bill Cassidy.
Trump, Senator Cassidy, delivering for Louisiana. Cassidy stood with President Trump to pass one big beautiful bill, providing historic investments in border security and tax relief for working families, boosting American energy production and manufacturing. And Cassidy worked with President Trump to combat deadly fentanyl, delivering new penalties for drug traffickers. Call Senator Cassidy. Thank him for fighting for Louisiana and America. Trump
and Bill Cassidy work hand in hand. That's what Bill Cassidy wants to tell the people of Louisiana. That's not running nationwide. He wants to make sure people know. Trump, Cassidy, hand in hand, one big beautiful bill, fucking up your life. So then after it fucks up your life, then Cassidy will go, well, I mean, according to the preponderance of evidence and the subject matter of the claims being made about the one big beautiful bill, I would cautiously disagree with, you know, that it takes away people's health care. Wouldn't even say that much. Because that's who these cowards are. They're still afraid of this rickety old liar. So this is what Donald Trump wants the rest of the world to respond, how he wants the rest of the world to respond to his press conference yesterday. He really thinks he's onto something.
Is widely used in other countries too. As you make this announcement, do you expect your decision may affect?
I hope
other
they follow
countries?
it. Yeah, I hope they follow it. Yeah, other countries are, you know, sell Tylenol. Some countries don't. I mean, I hear Cuba now. Again, you'll have to check this out. But I hear Cuba doesn't have it because it's very expensive, and they don't have the money to have it, or they don't want to spend the money to have it. They don't have Tylenol, and I hear they have essentially no autism. So you'll have to check it out. Yeah, right.
Medical professionals.
That's the second, probably third time he mentioned how Cuba doesn't have any money or doesn't choose to have Tylenol. So they have no autism. But the main purpose there was he wants the rest of the world to follow his lead on these ridiculous thoughts about Tylenol, acetaminophen, and autism. Let me show you what the rest of the world thinks of what it is that that he should do with his, you know, his recommendations. Available evidence has found no link between the use of paracetamol during pregnancy and autism, said the European Medicines Agency. Paracetamol, I'm probably saying that, paracetamol is a widely used name for Tylenol beyond the US. The EMA, again, the European Medicines Agency, said it would not be making changes to the region's current recommendations, maintaining that pregnant women should take the lowest effective dose of the drug for the shortest possible time and as infrequently as possible. A large amount of data from pregnant women who use paracetamol during pregnancy indicates no risk of malformations on the developing fetus or in newborns. Again, that's what they said to NBC News. The World Health Organization said that the evidence remains inconsistent regarding any link between the use of Tylenol during pregnancy and autism. Well, that's okay. That's what the European Medicines Agency said. So they're out. Let's check that one. European Medicine Agency is out on following Donald Trump's dumbass. Here, let's try another part of the world. Australian health officials were among the first to reject these claims, labeling them a misrepresentation of the science. Australia's medicines regulator, the Therapeutic Goods Administration, together with the country's chief medical officer, issued a statement Tuesday saying it was joining other global medicines regulators in repudiating Trump's claims. Robust scientific evidence shows no causal link between the use of paracetamol in pregnancy and autism or ADHD, with several large and reliable studies directly contradicting these claims. Australia, check off the list. Big middle fingers to Donald Trump. I've got more. And tell me if I'm saying the paracetamol wrong. New Zealand's Ministry of Health reiterated its guidance had not changed, describing paracetamol as the safest medicine to take in pregnancy if you require pain or treatment for fever. A spokesperson for the German health ministry told NBC News that there was no link between taking paracetamol during pregnancy and developmental abnormalities. In certain situations, taking medication is necessary to avoid endangering the mother and unborn child. For example, in the case of a high fever. New Zealand, off the list. I got more, you guys. I really want to give you a full breakdown of how isolated this dumbass is making this country based on the rest of the world's general normal thinking. The UK's health regulator issued a similar statement stressing that paracetamol remains the recommended pain relief option for pregnant women when used as directed. Untreated pain and fever can pose risks to the unborn baby, so it's important to manage these symptoms with recommended treatment. Crazy. That's what Dr. Allison Cave, who's chief safety officer at the MHRA, said. Health Secretary Wes Streeting told ITV early on Tuesday, "I would just say to people watching, don't pay any attention whatsoever to what Donald Trump says about medicine." He told ITV that I wish he would tell CBS, ABC, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, and all of them about it too, because apparently we're too stupid to get it ourselves. Last one, I promise. Spain's health minister, Monica Garcia Gomez, also called out Trump by his name, accusing him of ignoring all medical studies. Here's a quote from her. "Denialism not only destroys trust in science, it puts lives at risk." But who cares? Who cares? Who cares if people die? Donald Trump is trying to take your money. It's easier to take your money and you die than for him to have to deal with you griping about it all the time. So let's go ahead and kill people because they're too stupid to realize what it is that he's doing. But let's make sure that you go and buy Dr. Oz's pills as soon as possible so that, you can act like or feel safe that you're doing something because, this fascist in the White House told you to. I told you we're going to go over. That's only the press conference and the autism part of the show. Am I saying it wrong? Let me look at it again. Who knows? Acetaminophen is the way we call it here. So whatever they call it there, I'm not there. I got some updates on Tom Homan though. I was wondering this yesterday. I talked about Tom Homan and his $50,000 bribe that he took as he was promising folks that, he would give them these government contracts to, open up some facilities to jail migrant folks and even some American citizens at the will of the president who's declared war on the country. So since Tom Homan likes to go on TV all the time, I was like, when is Tom Homan going to fess up to what it is that he was doing? Because the FBI, as we heard yesterday, they said they had him on tape offering up a bribe with a sack of cash, you know, because he's a criminal. This is what he had to say to Laura Ingraham, though.
Address this article that came out over the weekend, and it was on our always reliable MSNBC, and they said that you took $50,000 in cash in a bag from an undercover FBI agent to help them win government contracts in Trump's second term. The DOJ said they concluded there was no criminal wrongdoing, but nevertheless, that story is out there, and I imagine you want to respond to that.
Oh, absolutely. Look, I did nothing criminal. I did nothing illegal. And it's hit piece after hit piece after hit piece. And I'm glad the FBI and DOJ came out and said, said that nothing illegal happened, nothing, no criminal activity. You're talking about a guy who spent 34 years enforcing the law. I mean, I left a very successful business that I ran to come back and work for a government again. I'm back on a government paycheck. Not only did I sacrifice my family sacrifices, I make sacrifices every day. I got more death threats than anybody. I got a security team around me, but guess what? My kids don't. My wife don't. I mean, I haven't lived with my wife in months because I don't want her to be here right now with all the threats. So after all the sacrifices, after serving my nation for all these years, they want to come on and dirty me up. And it's not going to end. There's a hit piece on me every 2 weeks. But keep coming, because you know what? Tom Homan isn't going anywhere. Tom Homan isn't shutting up. And Tom Homan's going to keep doing what he's doing, because working with President Trump's the greatest honor of my life. We're making this country safer again every day, and we're going to keep doing it.
Did you hear him say that he didn't take a $50,000 bribe, or did you hear him say they're going to keep coming after me because I can't hang out with my wife anymore, because I get death threats, or that there's always something coming for me? You keep them coming. Or did you take a $50,000 bribe? You saw how Laura Ingraham set the whole thing up from, that very reputable place, MSNBC, had this report. Well, did you do it? You fucking liar. Did you do it? Because, they said there's video. As a matter of fact, even when this is, again, how authoritarianism works. When the people who are running the Justice Department and the FBI then say we'll drop cases based on absolutely nothing, because that's what they dropped it based on. He'll say, well, look, the FBI dropped it. We know, because the people who work at the FBI also work for the same group that you work for. It's, it's a criminal regime. That's how criminal regimes work. That's why so many people were so upset that they were appointing all these people to run these agencies that will then cover for your criminal ass, who was appointed not through confirmation, but because you were, caught on tape with government handouts to jail people, internment camps. But oddly, Tom Homan was, as stupid as he is, was wise enough to not directly say, I didn't do it. He just said, they keep coming for me. So, Caroline Levitt doesn't have that same, foresight.
Sure. Thanks, Caroline. So two on the Homan investigation. I mean, can you just speak to, did the president ask the Justice Department to close the case, and does Homan have to return the $50,000?
Well, Mr. Homan never took the $50,000 that you're referring to, so you should get your facts straight, number one. Number two, this was another example of the weaponization of the Biden Department of Justice against one of President Trump's strongest and most vocal supporters in the midst of a presidential campaign. You had FBI agents going undercover to try and entrap one of the president's top allies and supporters, someone who they knew very well would be taking a government position months later. Mr. Homan did absolutely nothing wrong. And even the president's Department of Justice, even Kash Patel's FBI, looked into this just to make sure. They had a number of different prosecutors and FBI agents who looked into this. They found zero evidence of illegal activity or criminal wrongdoing in the White House, and the president stand by Tom Homan 100% because he did absolutely nothing wrong, and he is a brave public servant who has done a phenomenal job in helping the president shut down the border. Mary. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. So two.
You notice how it always gets to them being a victim? Tom Homan did the same thing. I haven't seen my wife for months. I don't want all this stuff to happen to me. Do you guys know how long I served? I was a law enforcement officer. Law enforcement officers also become criminals many times, actually. But again, where she stepped in, it was, you should get your facts right. He never took $50,000. Well, bro, you might not want to say things so conclusively before you really get the full the full story going. But she also pointed out how the FBI wanted to entrap him by trying to get him to take $50,000. Why would they try and entrap him? I mean, it's very easy. Show us the video, and then we can see that he went, "You're trying to entrap me. How dare you come for my credibility and my principles? I would never take any money. It's not like I set up this meeting with you to take $50,000 in a bag of cash with a dollar sign on the side of it." So again, they somehow think there's this level of credibility by citing Kash Patel's FBI as being the group that absolved him of all of these responsibilities for things that the previous FBI had him on video doing. As a matter of fact, here's the same woman that was speaking yesterday that I pointed out, talking about the things that they saw in this FBI investigation. It doesn't match up.
Many agents and sources involved in this essentially were really concerned because they did record him accepting a bag of cash. And most FBI seasoned investigators view accepting cash in a secret meeting that is surreptitiously arranged as sort of evidence of corrupt intent, someone realizing that they're doing something criminal and inappropriate. So that recording was incredibly important to them and a key piece of evidence. Legal experts told us that Homan could have been charged then, even though he wasn't a public official. He could have been charged with conspiracy or fraud in promising something improper in exchange for money. But what happened, to your question, was that basically, the investigation stalled as soon as the Trump appointees came into the DOJ and the FBI, and it was shuttered last month. Many agents.
There's that. It's pretty direct. It seems that they have this guy on video doing exactly what they said that he was doing. And again, similar to the Epstein files, they can clear this whole thing up by just, showing us that none of that happened. Or maybe they'll just say, there's no video. It's not like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and then Pam Bondi and the DOJ. It's not like all of them could come together and make sure that this thing never sees the light of day or that it disappears and now doesn't exist. It's why, again, there's no need to trust criminal liars. They're proven to be criminal liars. They've been criminal liars since they came into public view. So why now would we believe anything else that they have to say? Especially since they didn't even give a good reason why they dismissed this case. They just said deep state. Deep state's the reason. So again, just in case there's any, this evidence does come out, people like Megyn Kelly, we talked about this yesterday on TDR with John, this particular tweet that she posted as well. She says, "We do not care." Make sure she's in all capitals to let you know. Don't bother real Tom Homan. He's a national treasure. Again, based on what national treasure? Because he's got some gold nuggets bouncing around in his jaws every time he talks. Is that the national treasure that he's got hiding in his cheeks? They don't care. That's their whole purpose. That's the bottom line. Every time, again, these arguments get defeated in these discussions and get proven to be hypocrites and liars. The back end of the answer is always, okay, but I just don't care. Let me be a criminal. So if some petty thief, somebody who steals cars gets busted and then gets sent to trial, and then all the evidence is laid out there against them, and they go, "What's your defense?" "I don't care." Well, your ass is going to jail. Your new tag name is "I don't care," but you're in cell block C. But they feel that they have the power to say things like, "I don't care that you discovered that we're criminals." Because it's true, they don't care. But Scott McFarlane from CBS did point out that maybe something else is going to happen. Maybe some developments will come. Let's watch what he has to say.
You'll recall yesterday, when it comes to Trump administration border czar Tom Homan, the White House press secretary pushed back on the weekend allegations, saying in so many words, "Mr. Homan never took the $50,000 you're referring to, so get your facts straight." This was another example of the weaponization of the Department of Justice in the Biden administration. And the response from some Democrats has been what Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon of Philadelphia posted, which is, "So there should be no problem releasing the FBI tape," right? We heard that call through the day yesterday and will again today from people pushing back, saying if there is some type of FBI tape, it should be released.
Scott McFarlane does like those daily breakdowns of the news that's coming for the day, and I've discovered that he does those kind of regularly. The guy has a very calming voice. He should be like, those automated like voice things when you're waiting on hold somewhere, but we're way past that. Anyways, that was Scott McFarlane then talking about how the House, some Democrats in the House are pushing for something like this. I'm show you what they actually put forward. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I do want to point out the main aspects of this. So they point out that these media reports are pointing out that in 2024, they recorded Tom Homan. So what we need is, the information based off of this. It's pretty obvious that the Department of Justice and FBI initially planned to wait and see whether Homan would deliver on his alleged promise once he became border czar. So they have access to the people who worked on this beforehand. And what is it they did, what they wanted to see happen, and what they were waiting for. Somehow they feel like they can just dismiss all of that previous information, dismiss all these folks who worked on it, and probably have, actual things that they, put down on paper about what it is that they did in their investigation, and that it was all just made up. Who's making it up? MSNBC came up, made up this whole story. Even has the FBI agents that worked on it talking about their thought processes and how they went about it, about why they were waiting for the next shoe to drop to see if they could get him on even more serious charges, some more felonies based on him fulfilling these promises. In order to understand the lies that these guys tell you, you have to fully flesh out what it is that they're saying is happening. And that would have to be it. So the House Democrats were saying that, and they're asking for some evidence, maybe even seeing the video. But what I'm also happy to see is that there's the Senate Democrats are also on this as well. Here's a letter that they sent. As members of the Senate Judiciary Committee, we're initiating a robust oversight inquiry to review Mr. Homan's actions prior to and since joining this administration, as well as the DOJ's role in ultimately shutting down the investigation into Mr. Homan. Also, given the urgent need to repair public trust, we request the full investigative file, including any recordings of Mr. Homan receiving cash from undercover FBI agents. So both the House and the Senate, Democrats at least, are asking to first have hearings. The House wants to have hearings where he has to come in and answer for these things, where he's going to yell at them like Kash Patel did last week and make himself look really bad. And then also they're requesting the full investigative file about this. It'll probably just as hard to get that investigative file as it is to get that file, from Donald Trump and his best friend, Jeffrey Epstein. Which brings me to the last story I've got here for the hour. I mean, hour and who knows how much longer. So everyone who's leaving, I appreciate you. I know you guys may be going to TDR. Maybe you only had an hour today. Maybe going right back to work. You only had a lunch hour and you spent it with me. Either way, all these stories go up on the page. Please come find them, check them out. If you haven't liked this stream yet, do that. If you haven't shared it, do the same thing. But when you see all these videos, help me out and do those things over there as well too. Like them, share them, let people know what we're doing, because I got one more story. Since we're talking about releasing investigative files and getting to the bottom of criminal activity that are directly associated with this president, I got more from Scott McFarlane. He breaks down the news so smoothly. Here's what he's talking about now.
Tucson, Arizona, a special election to fill a vacant U.S. House seat, the House seat of the late Raul Grijalva. The favorite in that race is the Democrat Adelita Grijalva, Mr. Grijalva's daughter. If she wins, when she's sworn into the U.S. House, Ms. Grijalva would make a 218th potential signer of the discharge petition that's going through the U.S. House on a bipartisan basis, which would require, if passed into law, the Trump administration to release all Jeffrey Epstein case files. This could be a pivotal election and signature and ultimately vote in the U.S. House, which changes the trajectory, or at least the politics, of the Jeffrey Epstein matter, something the administration may be trying to turn the page on. But on Tuesday, unlike Monday, that page is more stuck.
Stuck pages there. So it looks like they're potentially going to get their last House member to then sign on to this this release of these Epstein files, which they've been trying to get. And, that one last person coming in is in Arizona, and she today may get that seat. Let's check out more of what's going on here.
People should know September 23rd, we'll have the 218 signature. 7 days from that, we'll have the vote. First week of October, this is going to pass. There was someone who was coming in for Gerald Connolly's seat, and that got us to 217. On September 23rd, Rep. Grijalva's successor is going to be sworn in. It's going to go to the Senate. Schumer has already called for it being brought up in the Senate. This is the first time that the survivors are going to have justice. This is the first time that you've had Republicans, Democrats, MAGA progressives coming together to pass something. It's hopefully a moment of healing, not just for the victims, but for this nation. If from the pain of the survivors, we find the will to start to bring this country together around principles, around basic principles, then maybe we can turn the corner as a nation. But I'm hoping between now and September 23rd, we may have one or two Republicans who find their voice and say, yeah, I'm going to stand up for survivors. And if Nancy Mace can do it and Marjorie Taylor Greene can do it.
There's Ro Khanna being, very, accommodating. But anyways, the possibility here is for, as they both pointed out, Adelita Grijalva winning her seat today in this special election out in Arizona, again today. So Mike Johnson's probably sweating bullets because his whole job is to protect Donald Trump against these things being exposed. Let me give you details of why people probably think she's going to win today. And who knows, maybe a fluke will allow it to not happen. And then, Trump can, clean the shit out of his pants that he's going through right now. So Grijalva, who was heavily favored to succeed her late father, Raul Grijalva, in a district Trump lost by 22 points, said that she'd be pleased to force this issue. She'd be eligible to sign immediately after she's sworn in, likely early next month. Quote, this is as much about fulfilling Congress's duty as a constitutional check on this administration as it is about demanding justice for survivors, is what she said. The days of turning a blind eye to Trump must end. Oh yeah, that could potentially be a problem for her. And Mike Johnson, as I pointed out, Donald Trump is probably breathing down his back like, are you going to do something about this to save my ass? We'll see what he can possibly do about it. Johnson, as they pointed out in this Political article, does have options. He can seek to block the discharge effort in the Rules Committee, which he nominally controls, but he has faced a string of mutinies over there since the Epstein file situation came up in recent weeks. Or he can let the bipartisan Epstein bill proceed to the floor, where it's very likely to pass, extending the controversy and handing the hot potato to Senate Republican leaders who are also afraid of Donald Trump. Asked last week about this dilemma, Johnson said that he wasn't ready to make a call yet. Here's what he said. We haven't talked about any of that. He said that before he left the Capitol last week, also again calling it a moot point. He then referenced a House vote this month that directed the oversight panel to continue its probe. That same thing he keeps talking about, that they keep releasing it. Nobody really cares because we already understand it. But at this point, if this now they get to this struggled point to release this discharge petition for us to get the actual information, and all these rich and connected people, including some presidents, could potentially be incriminated on this after we see the actual evidence. What'll then have to happen is either Mike Johnson has to come forward and say, I'll continue to cape, or I have to get out of the way, and eventually let Donald Trump be the one to be like, we're not going to do anything. I don't care what you guys say. I'm the king of this country. And it doesn't matter all the nefarious, filthy shit that I potentially did. So I just want to point out one other thing, because I remember when the many of the survivors from Epstein's child sex trafficking ring came forward and were standing outside of the Capitol talking about their experiences and how they want justice and all that stuff. And then Donald Trump was inside saying that they're all fake and they're Democrat hoaxes and all that. I just want to point out again, Representative Melanie Stansberry, who I enjoy the way that she goes about things. After they had their meeting with Alex Acosta, again, the guy that ended up working for Donald Trump, but at the time was the one who gave the sweetheart deal to Jeffrey Epstein in the first place, and was seemingly rewarded with his position that he was given in the Trump administration afterwards. I don't know if enough people really saw what it is that these Democratic Congress people came out and said they heard him say and how he went about this case. Man, this cover-up's been happening for a very long time. Check out what she broke down.
There were at least 40 minors who gave sworn statements to the FBI as part of the investigation before a decision was made in this case that they had been raped, abused, and trafficked. Over 40 minors. And the line prosecutor in this case wrote an 82-page memo to the leadership in the U.S. Attorney's Office recommending a prosecution. And she was so convinced, based on the evidence and interviews that she had taken and reviewed, that she drafted a 53-page indictment in this case. And what Mr. Acosta just told us is that based on his assessment of the case with his team, that he did not see sufficient evidence to move forward with prosecuting the case, that there were weaknesses in the case. When asked if he made the decision as to whether or not to fully prosecute this case, he took responsibility for it. He said it was the decision of him and his team. But when asked if he had directly reviewed the evidence itself in this case, he said that he had not actually read the statements of the victims. So let me just say this. Something doesn't smell right here.
Are you seeing a pattern? The people that are in charge of whether or not these investigations come to fruition keep shutting them down based off of nothing. The people that work the cases, similar like we're talking about Tom Homan, who worked the cases and damn near could have had their charges come right then. They pass it on down to the next level, and the folks now in charge, the people that are closely directly connected to Donald Trump, keep shutting these things down. And in this case, Alex Acosta never even saw it. He just said, there was enough evidence. Someone told me that there's not enough evidence. He never even saw it. Based on what? Who knows? Maybe someone should ask him, who leaned on you? Who told you that you might want to do this or else things could get much worse for you in your life? Stansbury is not the only one that pointed this out. All these Congress folks were talking to him and got similar conclusions as to what Acosta was doing. You know, it's, again, these criminals are not good at covering their tracks. It's kind of the same template because they feel like it's never going to catch up to them, even when we're looking at it right in front of us. Here's Jasmine Crockett.
Think about that. Think about the responsibility that is upon a prosecutor to go after a child predator and then to say, well, at the end of the day, we don't think they would have been believed. As someone who has been in these courtrooms, who has had to defend against these very types of cases, let me tell you something. And I did try to educate him on the experts that we have that can lay out whether or not a child has any inconsistencies as it relates to the trauma that they have experienced. It doesn't seem like either Mr. Acosta was equipped to be the U.S. attorney at that time, or he's just playing in our faces. I haven't really figured out which one, but neither one of these ultimate conclusions should be okay for the American people. Think about that.
I'm glad they're keeping their foot on the gas pedal here. This is, again, one of those big stories that Donald Trump keeps thinking was going to go away. And we see the stuff about all the political rhetoric talk, and we're seeing the stuff about horrible prices on our lives. We're seeing the talk about foreign wars. We're seeing the talk about how is authoritarianism, First Amendment, he's coming after. All these things are very, very important. But you know what? I'm going to keep playing people talking about what is they saw and heard from the people that were in charge and were supposed to take care of this. Especially since last week, we just heard the people that are now in charge of what they're supposed to take care of continue to lie about what it is that they're covering up. There's a reason behind it. It's because it's really, really, really bad. Here's Robert Garcia.
Now, it's very clear that Alex Acosta ran a deeply flawed investigation of the Epstein case. That's clear. He also would not admit that Mr. Epstein received a sweetheart deal, which has been widely reported and agreed upon since that deal was actually made by Mr. Acosta and his team. So he would not admit, and in fact stands by the decision to have given Mr. Epstein a sweetheart deal, which was only 18 months, and which during that time, he went on to abuse multiple women. In his questioning, he also agreed and stood by those decisions and would not claim any responsibility to the victims. And in fact said, and was admitted that he had no knowledge of what happened to those victims, even to this day, when asked directly if he actually knew that people were being abused, that women were abused during that time, he would not admit that he knew that information and actually refused to acknowledge the victim.
Well, there's that. It's like it's a concerted effort to make sure that this gets covered up. That's the whole purpose here. Alex Acosta, who everyone wanted to hear us talk to. How many news outlets have you seen them talk about what it is that Alex Acosta then revealed in that testimony? Here's the last clip. This is another one of these new Congress folks, another Democrat. I talked to him about him before. His name is James Walkinshaw. He's the second newest one, and hopefully the newest one will win her election here today in Arizona to go ahead and seal this deal on releasing these files. But this is that last link, because again, Acosta was the U.S. attorney. Then this is the position that he ended up getting with Donald Trump afterwards, which Donald Trump also continued to have a great relationship and lovingly things to say about Alex Acosta. Here's Representative Walkinshaw.
What did you learn from Acosta's testimony today?
Well, I think we learned what we've seen from Donald Trump and his allies throughout this Epstein saga, which is, in my view, a very callous disregard for the victims, the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. And I think Alex Acosta is in that category. The idea that Jeffrey Epstein, after the heinous crimes he committed, could receive an 18-month sentence, serve only 13 months, be released on a daily basis to continue his crimes, and then be released fully to commit more crimes is outrageous. It shouldn't happen in the United States of America. And the idea that Donald Trump then selected Alex Acosta to be his Secretary of Labor is also outrageous and raises a lot more questions.
What did you learn from Acosta's testimony?
You cover things up, you get rewarded with positions. You do things honestly and normally, you get fired, you get run out, you have to resign. I mean, look at what happened with HHS, look at RFK Jr., look at the CDC, look at how it works when you do things right. These guys are criminals and they work with normal criminal behavior. We're not letting it go. So we'll update and see what happens next. Hopefully, what's her name? Adelita Grijalva wins her special election today and gets to signing. And we find out by next month more information or more new ways that these guys will try and cover this up, because they do not want us to know. And there's a big reason why. I want you guys to know I appreciate you hanging on for a while now. We are done here with the stream. Go ahead and catch John. Let them know we have a late, sweep of people coming in. The watch party says hi. Tomorrow is Wednesday, only the middle of the week. We got more happening. Hopefully we'll have some more developments with the Homan stuff. I want to continue to stay on these things because it's really easy for us to forget. I need like a beat that I'm staying on, as if I'm an actual reporter or something. We'll see you guys tomorrow. I appreciate you. Have fun. Enjoy your day. See you then.